A man walks into an eyewear boutique. He picks up a pair of sunglasses off the display stand.
He feels the weight in his hand. The name on the temple is one he recognizes from magazines, from movie screens, from the faces of men he respects. He tries them on. The frame fits well enough.
He looks at the price tag, $350. He buys them. That transaction happens millions of times
Every year, and in most of those moments, the man has no real idea what he actually bought. What is this? I have no idea how this works. He bought a frame made from the same acetate supply chain that produces frames at a fraction of the cost. He bought lenses that may not be optically superior to what ships inside a $90 pair. He bought hinges, not designed to outlast heavy use. And he bought a logo, placed deliberately and visibly on the temple, because the entire margin structure of most premium sunglasses depends on your willingness to pay for that placement.
This video is about that gap. We analyzed 13 pairs across 2 camps, 8 brands men consistently overpay for,
And 5 that actually make the price legitimate, not because expensive is bad, because expensive without engineering, without optical performance,
without construction that holds up, that's just marketing wearing a hinge. Here's the problem with evaluating sunglasses in real time.
you have almost no feedback. When you buy a pair of boots, you know within a week whether they hold up. When you buy a jacket, you feel the weight, test the zipper, read the fabric, but when you put on a pair of sunglasses inside a bright boutique, what do you actually feel? Weight, fit, light reduction.
And the identity you imagine wearing that name on your face, you cannot tell in 15 seconds whether a lens
Has genuine UV protection, whether the acetate will warp in July heat, whether the hinge will loosen by spring,
or whether the optical clarity at the edge of the lens is sharp or distorted. Those things reveal themselves slowly.
and by the time they do, the brand has already moved to next season's frame, so the criteria have to change.
Here's what actually separates a good pair from an expensive pair: lens quality, UV protection certification, optical clarity,
Whether polarization is genuine or decorative, frame material, whether the acetate is standard or high grade, whether metal is alloy,
or titanium, whether there is structural rigidity that holds over time, hinge construction, barrel versus spring, repairable versus sealed.
and supply chain, who actually makes it, who owns the brand, and whether there is any optical engineering tradition behind the name.
With those criteria, let's start with the brands that fail them. A famous legacy eyewear brand may be the most successful optical illusion in fashion history. That's not cynicism, it's an engineering statement. The Aviator was designed in 1936 for US military pilots.
The Wayfarer redefined American casual style in the 1950s. Both are legitimately iconic designs. For decades, they were legitimately well-made.
But you're not buying that Ray-Ban, the company, the independent American brand that built precision optics for the military.
It was acquired by Luxottica in 1999. The design remained. The value proposition shifted. Today, a base model Wayfarer retails around.
The lenses in most entry models are CR39 plastic, a standard optical material used across the industry. The UV protection is real, but not exceptional. The polarized models step up noticeably, but the price jumps to $220.
Or more for a polarized lens that independent brands include as standard at a lower cost. The hinge is a simple spring hinge. The acetate is serviceable. The fit is broad and democratic, which is both a strength and a structural limitation.
What you're paying for at a famous legacy eyewear brand is legacy and visibility, two things the brand manages brilliantly if you want the cultural symbol.
The Wayfarer silhouette, the classic aviator geometry, a famous legacy eyewear brand delivers exactly that. But understand the transaction, you're not paying for optical leadership.
You're paying for a design archive and a marketing machine. That's a real product, it's just not a premium optical product.
This famous designer sells a version of himself, every item in the brand's universe. The suits, the fragrances, the shoes. The eyewear is an artifact of a very specific, constructed masculinity. Powerful, dark, cinematic.
Feel like they belong in that world. Here is what they actually are.
licensed frames produced through Marcolin Group.
An Italian eyewear manufacturer that also produces licensed frames for a luxury accessory brand, a crystal luxury brand, and others. There is no luxury menswear eyewear brand R&D department developing lens technology. The frames come out of Italian factories producing acetate eyewear for dozens of brands across multiple price points. The result is a well-made frame by Italian industrial standards, which are genuinely good.
But priced to include the TF logo and the brand's positioning as luxury menswear, at $350, you are paying for a product
that costs somewhere between $30 and $60 to produce, and that would retail for roughly $130 to $160 without the name. The logo on the temple is the product, the rest is packaging. Gucci Eyewear is handled by Kering Eyewear, the optical division of the Kering Luxury Group, the same parent company as Balenciaga, Saint Laurent, and Bottega Veneta. Kering Eyewear was created specifically to bring eyewear licensing in-house. The production is competent, the quality control is consistent.
But Gucci sunglasses typically cost between $280 and $450. What you're getting: acetate frames, branded hardware, and lenses that meet standards.
UV minimums, but offer nothing in optical performance you cannot find at half the price. The Gucci GG logo on the temple, on the bridge, sometimes on both, represents a substantial share of the product's perceived value. The actual construction accounts
For far less, the counter-argument. High-fashion luxury eyewear brand frames are fashion objects, and fashion objects are priced differently than performance objects.
That's coherent, but it means you're buying a fashion accessory, not an eyewear investment, when men treat a high-fashion luxury eyewear brand sunglasses as premium eye protection. That's the misunderstanding. When they treat them as wearable brand expression, at least the transaction is honest. Versace eyewear is one of the clearest examples of logo as load-bearing structure. The Medusa head on the temple is not decorative, it is the entire value proposition. A bold luxury fashion eyewear brand's eyewear passes through licensing arrangements with major Italian manufacturers. The frames are competent production, the lenses are standard. What makes a bold luxury fashion eyewear brand worth discussing here is the complete unapologetic visibility. Of the branding, there is no bold luxury fashion eyewear brand sunglasses consumer who doesn't know they're buying the logo. The issue is that at $250
to $380, you are purchasing that announcement, not an optical instrument. The acetate is not exceptional, the hinges are not engineered.
For repairability, the lenses offer UV protection that meets regulation but doesn't exceed it if the Medusa head disappeared from the temple.
this product could not sustain its price point, Oakley earned its reputation the old way. XYZ optics technology, plutonite lens material, military and sports contracts, frames tested in conditions that destroy ordinary eyewear. In 1990, Oakley was genuinely engineering better sunglasses. Their performance technology was real and differentiated. Luxottica acquired Oakley in 2007. The performance line, ski goggles, cycling glasses,
Tactical models supplied to law enforcement still reflects genuine engineering. That's a fair product at a justified price.
but a significant share of current Oakley retail is the lifestyle segment. The Frogskins, the Holbrook, the general fashion line.
These frames retail between $130 and $200, carry full Oakley brand equity, and deliver standard injection molded frames with polarized
or non-polarized lenses that don't reflect the brand's engineering peak. You're paying for a performance sports eyewear brand name, a name built by athletes,
engineers, and receiving a product built for streetwear. The performance sports eyewear brand Performance Heritage is real, the lifestyle line is borrowing it.
Prada's eyewear is licensed through Essilor Luxottica. The brand authorizes production of frames bearing its name. The supply chain handles manufacturing, distribution, and retail placement. The resulting product is clean and consistent. The acetate is smooth. The construction is controlled. At $280 to $420, you are paying for Prada's minimalist aesthetic and fashion authority, not for optical superiority.
There is no Prada lens technology. There is no proprietary Prada frame engineering. If you value the Prada visual language,
that's a legitimate reason to buy. But if you believe you're paying for craftsmanship above and beyond what the price range can buy elsewhere, you're paying for the story, not the sunglasses. Dior Eyewear belongs to LVMH, the largest luxury conglomerate in the world.
Production routes through licensing arrangements with established eyewear manufacturers. The frames are well finished, the lenses meet
standard UV certification. The product is presentable and consistent. What makes Dior relevant here is the price ceiling. Dior sunglasses can reach $500, $600, or higher for acetate frames that share supply chains with products costing a fraction of that. The optical performance is standard. The CD logo visible at a distance is a social signal, not an optical one.
There is no technical argument for paying $500 for a couture luxury eyewear brand lenses over $200 for lenses from a brand with genuine optical heritage. The argument is entirely aesthetic and social. You can make that argument, just know you're making it.
Carrera is the most interesting entry on this side of the list because it once had a legitimate technical reputation. The brand's history runs through motorsport and aviation. Early Carrera frames were worn by racing drivers, photographers, and pilots.
The name comes from the Carrera Panamericana road race. The heritage is real. The current product largely sells that heritage without delivering it. Carrera is now owned by Safilo Group, one of the largest eyewear licensors in the world. The contemporary consumer line uses retro-inspired design to evoke the brand's peak years. The frames are standard TR90 or acetate construction. The lenses are decent but not distinguished. Pricing runs from $140 to $280 depending on the model. For what you receive,
Standard construction, competent lenses, and a sport aesthetic anchored in nostalgia, the price carries a large vintage premium.
you are paying for what a vintage motorsport eyewear brand used to engineer, not for what it currently builds, when a brand's most compelling marketing argument is a black and white photograph from 1965. That's a signal worth reading. Before we get to the other side of this list, there's a structural reality that explains most of what you've just heard. Most fashion houses do not make sunglasses.
They license their name to companies that specialize in eyewear manufacturing: Safilo, EssilorLuxottica, Marchon, Dirigo, Marcolin.
These manufacturers produce the frames, manage quality control, handle distribution, and pay the fashion house a royalty per unit.
This means that when you buy licensed eyewear, you are effectively buying two things: the physical frame and lenses.
And the permission to wear a fashion house's identity on your face. Both have value, but the price of that permission
Is often larger than the price of the frame, and it appears on no label. This is not fraud. The products are real, the quality is often acceptable, but it completely changes what you're paying for.
The man who thinks he's paying for optical craftsmanship may be paying for a brand extension strategy that has nothing to do with his eyes. If any of this changes how you read a price tag, stay with us. We do this work. And so you don't have to. There's a test most men run in eyewear stores without realizing it.
They pick up a frame, feel the weight, flex the temple, push the hinge, and conclude from those 5 seconds of physical sensation whether the pair is quality. Heavy means solid, flexible hinge means well-engineered, thick acetate means premium. Most of this is wrong. Weight in a frame tells you almost nothing useful. Thick acetate can be low-grade cellulose.
That warps in heat, a spring hinge can feel smooth in a boutique and develop play within 6 months.
A metal frame can feel dense and rigid and still use coated zinc alloy that corrodes in sweat.
The meaningful weight in sunglasses is not what the frame feels like in your hand, it's what the lens does under real light.
And whether the frame holds its geometry after a year of daily use. The people who actually know eyewear look
At different things, they look at the barrel of the hinge. Is it a simple spring or a precision barrel hinge?
They look at lens edges. Is the optical clarity consistent to the periphery, or does it distort? They check nose pads.
They adjustable and replaceable or molded in place. They ask about lens replacement. Can the brand swap lenses, and at what cost? In 3 years, when the coating goes, these are the questions that separate a good pair from an expensive one.
Now let's look at the brands that hold up to both. If sunglasses were judged purely on lens technology, Maui Jim would win most comparisons within its price range. The brand was founded in Hawaii in 1980,
Built specifically to address one of the most demanding optical environments on Earth: water, sand, equatorial sun. The product came from a technical problem, not a fashion ambition. Polarized +2 technology, Maui Jim's core lens system. blocks 99.9% of reflected glare, cuts UVA and UVAB completely, and enhances color contrast rather than simply reducing light.
The visual difference between a standard polarized lens and a Maui Jim lens is perceptible in field conditions. Colors read truer, depth on the water is sharper, reflected surfaces on pavement and snow look different.
This isn't marketing language, it's a measurable optical outcome at $180 to $350 depending on the model.
Maui Jim is priced similarly to many licensed fashion brands. The difference is that the price lives in the lens. The frames are solid but not extravagant. The branding is low. The optical performance is the product.
For any man who drives in direct sun, spends time on the water, or works at altitude, Maui Jim is a legitimate but
Performance investment, one of the few pairs of sunglasses where you're paying for what's in front of your eyes, not what's on the side of your face. Persol was founded in Turin in 1917. The company spent its first decades
building eyewear for drivers and pilots, developing function before it ever addressed fashion, the Maflecto system, the flexible hinge mechanism that allows temples to extend and flex without mechanical failure, was patented by Persol and remains one of the most technically
sound hinge solutions in commercial eyewear. The frame moves with your head, it resists stress fracture, it maintains geometric alignment.
under heat and pressure that would compromise lesser hardware. Luxottica acquired Persol in 1995, that's worth stating clearly. But unlike most major eyewear conglomerate acquisitions that resolved into pure brand licensing, a heritage Italian eyewear frames are still produced in Italy. The 714 and 649 models, Persol's most iconic, are still made with above-average acetate,
Crystal lens options, and construction that reflects an optical origin rather than a fashion strategy. What you pay for with Persol is real Italian construction, a hinge system with actual engineering behind it, crystal lens options that match or exceed the clarity of most fashion glass, and a design vocabulary that doesn't depend on a visible logo to justify itself.
At $250 to $380, Persol occupies an honest position. The price corresponds to something that was built, not just branded.
There are very few American-made sunglasses at any price point that merit serious consideration in this space.
Randolph Engineering is one of them. Based in Randolph, Massachusetts, the company has been manufacturing metal frame sunglasses since 1972.
And has supplied the United States Air Force for decades. This is not a heritage story built for a catalog. It is a production fact. The Skyforce lenses, Randolph's proprietary glass lens option, deliver optical clarity that most plastic lens competitors don't match at any price. The frames are constructed from surgical-grade metal. The bayonet cable temples, inherited from pilot frame design, distribute weight differently than standard temples and maintain a more secure fit during movement. The hinges are barrel type, repairable, and replaceable.
If a screw strips on a Randolph frame, an optician can fix it. If a temple breaks, it can be replaced. That is not true of most fashion eyewear at $350, at $200 to $280. Randolph is not cheap. But the price corresponds to American manufacturing, military heritage that is not a photo shoot, genuine glass lens options,
and a frame built to be maintained rather than discarded. That's a different category of value proposition.
and a category that most of this industry has quietly abandoned. American Optical shares historical ground with Randolph. The original Pilot series was the design the U.S. military used before and during Vietnam. Aviator geometry, bayonet temples, glass lens options. American Optical has been producing variations of that frame with those specifications for decades. The brand doesn't compete on fashion.
It has no celebrity ambassador. It spends nothing on lifestyle marketing. The product is honest, a well-built, functional, American-made frame.
Priced between $100 and $175, with lens options that are optically superior to most fashion brands at twice the price.
No aspirational packaging, no visible logo theater. The sunglasses simply work for a man who wants reliable optics.
A classic silhouette and zero markup for symbolism, American Optical is one of the cleanest value propositions in this entire category. Oliver Peoples requires nuance. The brand was founded in 1987 in Los Angeles and built its reputation on refined acetate work.
Unusual colorways, and a design ethos that explicitly rejected visible branding in favor of subdued sophistication. Luxottica acquired it in 2007. The same year Luxottica acquired Oakley. These two acquisitions tell very different stories. Oliver Peoples has maintained genuine differentiation.
Within the major eyewear conglomerate portfolio, the acetate quality is above the brand's price point average. The frame finishing, how edges are polished, how color is applied, how hinges are set into the frame, reflects craft investment that distinguishes them from licensed fashion production.
The designs develop from a consistent visual identity rather than being adapted seasonally from a fashion collection.
And the Oliver Peoples aesthetic does not depend on a logo, cover the branding. The frame still holds its identity. That's rare. At $350 to $500, Oliver Peoples is not a value play, and the question was never whether it's cheap. It's whether the price is justified for a man who values understated design, above average acetate, and a brand that has thought carefully about what a pair of sunglasses should look like rather than what it should signal. Oliver Peoples makes a real case.
Not because it's without compromise, but because the price reflects material and design investment rather than a royalty check. Now you have the framework, use it. Before you pay $300 or $400 for any pair of sunglasses, ask 7 questions. What are the lenses made from, and what optical standard do they actually meet? Not just UV400, which is the regulatory floor, but polarization quality, edge clarity, and coating durability. Who made this frame? A company with optical engineering in its DNA, or a manufacturer producing under license for a fashion house? What is the frame material, and does the brand actually tell you the grade? High quality acetate and standard cellulose are different materials. Titanium and coated zinc alloy are different metals. Are the hinges repairable? Can an optician replace a screw, adjust the fit, swap the lenses in 3 years? Or is this a frame designed to be discarded? Is the polarization functional? Hold the lens up to a reflective surface and rotate it. The glare should shift and disappear if the polarization is real. Is this a brand that builds eyewear? Or a brand that licenses its name to someone who does? And finally, where does the price actually live? In the lens, the construction, the design, or the logo? These questions won't always lead you away from the names you already know.
Sometimes Ray-Ban is the right answer. Sometimes a Tom Ford frame is worth it as a conscious fashion purchase.
Sometimes you want the Gucci statement, and you understand exactly what that transaction is. These are valid choices.
The problem is when they happen without clarity, when a man pays $380 believing he is investing in optical quality, he's mistaken.
And is actually paying for a royalty arrangement he didn't know existed. The men who get the most from their eyewear
are the ones who separate the optical investment from the aesthetic investment, and then decide deliberately which one they're making.
A logo on the temple protects your identity, not your eyes. The lens does that. The construction decides how long it lasts.
The brand tells you which of those 2 things you're actually paying for. You now know how to find out.